Welcome back, everybody, to another video with Shifty's 49ers Talk. In today's video, we're going to talk about the big news of the day. It's Super Bowl Sunday, and no, we're not talking about the Chiefs and the Eagles. We're talking about the fact that Deebo Samuel, he's requested a trade away, demanded a trade away from the San Francisco 49ers. He did this in the player exit meetings before, and the news has come to light. The 49ers have granted permission for Deebo Samuel to be traded away. We're going to talk all about it. Coming up first, though, let's run the intro, and then we're going to get stuck into it. So, Deebo Samuel, his days are apparently numbered with the San Francisco 49ers. There was like a little bit of rumblings the last couple of days, I feel like, with Deebo Samuel about maybe his future with the 49ers, but now it is all but certain that Deebo Samuel will certainly not be on the 49ers team come week 1 of the 2025 season. First off, I just have to say that it's such a bummer that it's come to this, Deebo Samuel, while he's been in San Francisco, of course, personally himself, he's had a ton of success with the 49ers. You look at the team, his rookie year, we go to the Super Bowl, we go to the Super Bowl again, NFC Championship games, and I guess first and foremost, let's just say a huge thank you to Deebo Samuel. He put everything on the line for this team. When I look back at the 2021 season, it's always going to be just with the most fond memories. Of course, it didn't end the way we wanted it, but when I think of Deebo Samuel, he just carried the team that season. He was unbelievable, and so many memorable plays through that year. And even you think back to last year against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia, and he's just such a great player. And it's a bummer that it came to this. And I think it is, you could kind of see it happening, Deebo didn't look like the same Deebo, whether it's in this offense. Maybe there's a bunch of things behind the scenes that we don't really know about. You think back to the Tampa Bay game this season where he's getting in the face of Jake Moody. Not really what you'd expect from a captain. Now, I did kind of defend his actions there because Jake Moody was almost costing the team the game by not just doing his job where it's just a simple, kick the ball through. Well, not simple, but we're just kicking the ball. And they weren't like super long field goals, but I digress. He just didn't seem like himself. Doing these podcasts, he kind of seemed like he wasn't happy, especially after the season, wearing the A.J. Brown jersey, which I don't think is a big deal, but some people did. And it's just a bummer that it's come to this, but you could see it happening. And, it's going to be really weird seeing Deebo Samuel on another team. I did think he'd be one of those guys who would just be with the Niners, maybe not his entire career, but maybe for another. I thought he'd be here for at least this coming season, especially when you factor in that Brandon Ayuk probably not going to be back till middle of the 2025 season, recovering from his injury. So let's talk about now, look, we kind of reminisced a little bit about Deebo Samuel, his time with the 49ers, which was just such a good time. Now let's talk about what's going to happen. What kind of trade are we looking at here, Deebo Samuel? So I think the trade is probably going to happen either prior to March 22nd or after June 1st would be the most beneficial time for the 49ers to do that. So especially from a cap standpoint. So before March 22nd, Deebo Samuel's due a $15 million bonus on that date, which would be spread over 5 years. So if you trade him before then, we're still going to be losing money on the trade in terms of the cap. It would be a $30-something million dead cap hit. However, we would be able to recoup about $3 million a year if we trade him prior to March 22nd. If we trade him between March 22nd and June 1st, which there's a little thing called the NFL draft happening, and that's a time when a lot of trades happen, whether it's right before, whether it's during, or right after the draft, when teams will want to get their guys so they can get them in for OTAs and all that good stuff. But I think that's going to be really hurt the 49ers financially. Now, maybe it's the case where, look, this conversation with Deebo and Kyle Shanahan happened at the player exit meetings, which at this point would be about a month ago. So the team has been aware of the situation and they would be able to plan accordingly. If he's traded after June 1st, it would only be a $10.7 million dead cap hit, and we would actually save about maybe $5 million or so on the cap. Not a huge amount, but better than losing out on maybe about $15 million or so, which I think would be the loss with a trade. So from that standpoint, however, I do think the most likely time for him to get traded is between March 22nd and June 1st. However, from a cap standpoint, again, financially it works better to be before March 22nd or after June 1st. I don't think it's going to be after June 1st because I don't think he's going to be on the team or on the roster for another 4 months. I just think that would be so much drama. And I want to say, and it seems like this season the Niners would just want to avoid all of that. So I expect to trade, maybe in the next month, 2 months or so. What would we be recouping in a Deebo Samuel trade? So what I'm kind of thinking is like a late third, early fourth round pick. Now, who could we trade Deebo Samuel to? Well, I do think that ideally we trade him to an AFC team, and I think there's actually a number of really good possibilities. So the first couple of teams that really stick out to me are the Pittsburgh Steelers, who need another wide receiver to play opposite of George Pickens. You look at the LA Chargers, they need a wide receiver with Ladd McConkey. Quentin Johnston's not great. The Denver Broncos, they all have late-ish third-round picks. You're talking picks, in the mid-80s. And then you look at all those teams have a bunch of cap space. You're talking $35 million plus cap space. So whatever cap hit that they would taking on his contract, they could easily work that in. I do think that Deebo Samuel is a guy who just needs a change of scenery. Unfortunately, we're going to get maybe 30 cents on the dollar for the quality of player that Deebo is. If you think back to, now it is, 3 years ago after the 3 or 4 years ago when he signed after the 2021 season that, we would have gotten maybe a first, or maybe a top, maybe a middle of the first round type pick. Now we're settling for a late third, so we've already lost a ton of value. But I do think it would be a good get for any of those teams who could use help at the wide receiver position. I think some other AFC teams you're looking at, maybe the Houston Texans, their cap situation isn't as good as the other teams mentioned, but you look at the D'Amico Ryans connection there, a lot of former 49er players, Jimmy Ward, Azeez Al-Shire, so that's a possibility. Other teams too, the Tennessee Titans, they have an early fourth round pick. They could use some weapons with Calvin Ridley. The New England Patriots, they absolutely need some weapons. They also have former 49er receiver Kendrick Bourne on the roster, and they could definitely add more weapons for a guy like Drake May going into his second year. I mean, if you take at 10, it would be pick 105 if you can get Deebo Samuel there. Plus, maybe you take a receiver in like the second round, maybe even their first round. Maybe they go Teteroa McMillan out of Arizona so they can get a bunch of weapons quickly for Drake May. But just throwing out some possibilities there. In the NFC, there's not too many teams that I foresee us potentially trading to. I think the Washington Commanders would stick out number one because you have the connection with Adam Peters. Peters knows Deebo Samuel very, very well. I think he'd be a good fit for that offense, outside of Terry McLaurin. You look at their other receivers, I think their next 3 or 4 wide receivers, they're all free agents. Now, I'm sure they bring back 1 or 2, but maybe adding a guy like a Deebo Samuel, who, again, Adam Peters will be very familiar with. The Commanders have the 79th overall pick, so kind of mid-late third round. That could be a possibility for the 49ers. Maybe the New York Giants. New York Giants cap space, they have about $40 million in cap space. Maybe with their pick 104, they could entertain the Deebo Samuel trade. I haven't really looked into what they could trade with regards to maybe a player for player swap, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. But there you have it, guys, with the potential trades that we could see working out with Deebo Samuel. And so then you look at the 49ers, and let's talk about the 49ers moving forward. Now you look at, we're going to be down Ayuk for probably half the year. Deebo Samuel is not going to be on the roster. So you have Jawan Jennings, you have Ricky Pearsall, and you have Jacob Cowing. So the 49ers were going to have some work to do to improve the receiver room, especially at least until a guy like Brandon Ayuk comes back. And there were those slight rumors about T. Higgins. I think it was Michael Lombardi mentioned, geez, imagine T. Higgins on the 49ers. That would be crazy. That's a possibility. Now, that would be a lot of money invested in the wide receiver room. Like, you're talking Ayuk, you're talking the dead cap hit from Deebo Samuel, you're talking T. Higgins. So I don't know if that's realistic, but man, that would be a great get for the 49ers, especially when you're trying to build around your young quarterback quarterback Brock Purdy, who's about to make a whole lot of money himself. Potentially in the draft, maybe you in the first round can get Luther Burden III out of Missouri. Maybe you get Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. Does Teteroa McMillan drop to the 49ers at 11? Maybe. Is that where you want to go? I think that the Niners would be more looking for some veteran guys. I mean, you have your two young wide receivers in Pearsall and Cowing, so maybe you go the veteran route. You could go for a T. Higgins. Stephon Diggs, I don't see happening. You know, he's had his issues with other teams like Buffalo. He wanted out of Buffalo, and that's a great situation right there. So I think there's other options. I mean, not that it would be a replacement for Deebo, but you're probably bringing back a guy like Chris Conley, who's been on the team for a couple of years on a cheap one-year deal. But would really have to delve into the free agent market, see who's available, maybe at some fairly cost-effective, maybe like a guy like an Amari Cooper, for example, a guy whose value would definitely have gone down. You know, last season wasn't great for him in Cleveland, then he goes to Buffalo. You know, mid-season trade for a wide receiver can be pretty difficult to adjust to a whole new offense, new situation, new quarterback. So maybe a fresh start in San Francisco, that could be an option right there. But yeah, just I'm still a little bit thrown off by this whole Deebo Samuel trade request. It really sucks. I know some people were not fans of his, you know, especially like how he played this year wasn't great. Maybe his actions in the Tampa Bay game, you know, he had the big drop against the LA Rams that could have been a game-winning catch, and he just hasn't looked like himself. Whether, you know, you want to blame Deebo Samuel or you want to blame the blocking or whatever else you might want to look at, it sucks because you just saw what a fantastic player in 2021. He was still pretty darn good in 2022 and 2023, and just crazy that it came to this situation. It sucks. He was one of my favorite players to watch in this Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch era, and it's coming to an end, and he's still a pretty young player, so I think he could have some decent seasons, some bright seasons ahead, and I think a team that gets him, especially if you're talking like a late third and early fourth, that could be a huge win for any of these teams that I mentioned. Maybe another team comes out of nowhere, offers a little bit more. But yeah, just want to say, just wanted to give you guys the update on Deebo Samuel. Again, I'm a little bit all over the place. Normally, I'm a bit more focused when it comes to doing these videos and lasered in. But yeah, this is just throw me for a loop. I just worked 12 hours. I heard the news while I was at work. I'm back home now. Going to be getting ready for the Super Bowl. But yeah, Deebo Samuel going to be leaving the San Francisco 49ers, and didn't expect to be hearing that today. But there you have it, guys. Let me know your thoughts, of course, on the Deebo Samuel drama. You know, where do you think he'll go? What do you think we'll get in return? What are your thoughts? What are your favorite memories of Deebo Samuel, you know, with the San Francisco 49ers? Would love to hear all about it in the comments below. But thank you so much, guys. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Did a couple of videos the last few days. I've seen the subscribers go up, so that's really cool news. And keep that rolling in. Feel free to share the videos, too. You guys know how we do it. Maybe we'll do some live shows where we can actually interact. Well, live, interactive. But yeah, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to watch the Super Bowl. It's going to be coming on in a few hours. Should be a really good time. Should be a good game. I don't really care who wins, and I hope both teams lose somehow. But thank you, guys. Before I go, though, you know I'm going to say two things. The butt counts, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Thank you very much, Deebo Samuel. Appreciate everything you've done with the 49ers, and best of luck.